think? If you love this film as much as I do, I just wanted to remind you all that it is eligible for our audience award. So all of you got ballots that you can use to cast your vote and return them to my colleague Kiana, who will be by the door on your way out. Alrighty, so without further ado, I'd like to invite back up to the stage Thomas Percy Kim, as well as cast members Ethan Hwang, Samantha Mathis, and Ava DeMary. Alrighty, congratulations, y'all. Before we get started, I just wanted to create some space for everyone to make any acknowledgments to any folks who are in the audience tonight, or anyone who may not be here this evening that you wanted to give a shout out to.
Absolutely. You guys saw the credits, the big family, small movie. If everyone who worked on the film could please stand up and have a little round of applause, that'd be great. I don't think some people stood up. I saw some folks
Yeah, Ben.
So yeah, Thomas, we'll start with you. So the film is a very delicate exploration of C. Miller, who's experiencing a crisis of identity. And his circumstances thrust him into this confrontation with his past, and then puts him in a position to be reacquainted with his Korean roots. So I think that can be a sort of thematic starting point in terms of going back to your roots and re-exploring your youth, and then also the story about your friend C. And I wanted to know how the convergence of those two things ultimately led to Idle Child.
That's a great question. A little backstory about me. My name's Thomas. Me and my family, we immigrated here from South Korea around 2001, and I spent the majority of my childhood growing up in this place called Concord, Massachusetts, which is where we shot the film. And growing up there were, I'm sure you guys heard of Concord, Massachusetts, like Emerson, Thoreau, Walden, very colonial, Battle of Lexington, Paul Revere, might have heard of him. It's a very colonial place, very affluent, a lot of old money, and it was also, there weren't that many Asians. I mean, it was a pretty white town. And growing up there, I, at an age so hungry for love and belonging, I just remember feeling like I was trying to pass as white. In some degree, I was trying my best to just fit in with everyone and be like everyone else, and wear the same clothes that my friends do, and talk the way they do, and walk the way they do, and I just remember, just trying to fit in so hard. And, there was this other Asian kid who was C, who was Korean American adopted, but we never really got along because he was Asian, I was Asian, I didn't want to associate with him, he didn't want to associate with me. He was more of like the extroverted kid. He was very funny, very boisterous. He was friends with all the jocks and all the girls, and I was in more of my little nerdy circle off to the side. And so we never really associated with each other until junior year of high school. I watched the movie Moonlight, and that movie shook me to my core, as I'm sure it did with many of you guys. And I just began thinking about my own identity. Who am I? Who am I in this world? What is my story? And I thought, what better way to figure out who I am than to go to this kid who's also Korean American and talk to him. So I remember he was working at an ice cream parlor, a local ice cream parlor at the time, and so I remember walking up to, I went to the ice cream parlor, it's very famous, and I got my usual Oreo ice cream, and I stood at the checkout line. I was like, hey, I know we really didn't talk that much, but I'd love to get to know you. I'd love to hear your story. And from then on, and he was very reluctant at first, but eventually we warmed up and went down to the basement of the ice cream parlor. And after he'd get off every shift, every weekend, we would like sit down in the ice cream parlor and just talk and get to know each other and hear our stories and share our experiences growing up in Concord. And we realized that there were so many similarities to our stories. There were so many things that ran in parallel. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Whatever I experienced for the past 10 odd years, this guy has experienced it, but probably to a larger degree. Because he was adopted, I could always go back home to my Korean parents and embrace my Korean culture if I wanted to, but he would never have that choice. He is by all definition American, except for the way he looked. And so I do think he had a much more dramatized version of my story, but there were still so many similarities, such as just this self-oppression, just wanting to fit in, just this self-hatred, for who we were when we look in the mirror. And so that's how I met C, and that was the spark for a short film that I made in 2019. At the end of high school, I made a short film. Later got picked up by HBO Max, and then we started turning that into a feature film. But that's where the film started, and I remember sharing the short film with C. And this was when Snapchat was a big thing. He Snapchatted me, and he was crying, and he was telling me how much it meant to him, and how he realized that so many of his problems that he felt in his life stemmed from the fact that he had this self-loathing. He realized so many of his problems stemmed from the fact that he didn't like who he looked like when he saw himself in the mirror. And it was an incredibly healing journey. I mean, when you go to therapy, you find words to describe your experiences, right? And then you can personify it and then deal with it as a third entity, And similarly, him watching me make the film was that therapeutic process of realizing his story is not alone. He's not alone in his story. And for me, it was really making the movie. Making the movie gave me the words to describe my experience and personify it for the first time, and deal with it, and control it, and not let it control me. And so that's a long way of sharing my backstory of how this whole thing came about and why we're here tonight.
And then Ethan, you are the one who brought the character C to life, and you're the one that inhabited all of those experiences, and you're slowly but surely becoming a quiet master of being able to express the language of non-verbal dialogue. And what I was wondering is what your creative collaboration with Thomas was like in order to express this specific language, and then also what sort of aspects of C. Miller was it that really connected with you?
So I remember a feature I did before this, Old Rice Blue Sleeps, was, it was an immigrant story. And I remember I was at a screening, and someone in the audience asked my director about adopted Koreans. She said, I'm adopted Korean. What do you think about those stories? And I remember going home that day, and my dad was like, that was a really good question. You don't see a lot of stories about that. You don't hear about a lot of, adopted Koreans. There's so many, because he knew a lot of them as well, growing up. And then, by chance, a month later, I get asked to do Isle Child from Thomas, and I just kind of read the script. And when I read the script, what really did connect me to the role was, before I started acting, I played 12 years of hockey. I grew up in Canada, so I played 12 years of competitive hockey, and I was always the only Asian kid on every hockey team. I would get called names, I'd be, picked on, whatever. And even though I felt like I had a bond with my team, I still kind of felt on the outside. And back then I was so young, I didn't really understand what that was. I always thought, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, I'm not tall enough. I'm not whatever. And so that sort of made an insecurity grow inside of me for so long. But growing up, getting older, I kind of realized what that really was. And I started to understand the importance of being able to connect with my culture and being able to really talk to my parents and talk to my mom and talk to my grandparents and go back to Korea and understand where I really come from, even though I was born in Canada. And I just really couldn't think about what would have happened if I didn't have that to support me. So when I read the script, that whole idea of him, being good at baseball and having all these friends, even though they kind of still have these ignorant remarks, and different actions towards him, that did resonate with me a lot. And my dad grew up in the U.S. My dad, he was a second gen. He went to school in the U.S., went to school in Canada. He speaks perfect English, and I feel like a lot of these things also happened to him as well as me. And every time he talks about these stories, I just kind of, for me, I want, as much as I want to tell C's story, which is a privilege and an honor, I want to do it for my dad as well. And just to see, that light in his eye and that sort of feeling inside of him that he doesn't know how to express, I feel like that's something that I want to give him. So that's what really helped me, and as well as Thomas is super talented and amazing. Walked me through everything and told me how to, really guided me along the story, so yeah, that helped a lot.
You two together made the magic happen. So Samantha and Ava, so both of you are at various stages of your careers, but I feel like there's nothing quite like Isle Child that has come across your desk before. And what I was wondering is what specifically about it drew you to the project and wanted to become a part of it?
Well, the project came to me, and along with attachments to watch Thomas's shorts. And God, I'm so emotional right now because I'm so proud of you. And I saw Busan, and I was blown away. I just thought it was so elegant and beautiful. And then I watched your proof of concept that you made, and I was so impressed by the way it portrayed teenage male energy, this sort of like jocular, aggressive, playful, but on the edge of violent, young masculinity. It was so powerful. And then I realized that Thomas was 20, and that he made these movies, and I thought, my God, this is a force. This is someone who's going to be making films for a long time. And I responded to the material, and I thought, yes, I want to go on a journey with this young man and see what he makes. So that's where I got involved.
I got an email, and it just had a character breakdown and sides, and I immediately felt connected to the character just from the few words that were given to me. And I usually play like the mean girl or like the shallow girl, like crazy girlfriend. But there was something so like genuine and sweet about her and empathetic, but still flawed and learning and growing, which I really resonated with. So I was very excited to do that. And then I got this full script. And I don't think I got the short film, but I was searching the web and found it and looked at your work. And of course the story is so beautiful, and something I was really drawn to was the visual storytelling in the short film, but also written into the script. And that was like one of the first things that I said when someone asked me, how's the script? Because I'm just reading script auditions and everything. And that was the first thing that jumped out at me. And yeah, I was super excited to work with you, especially when I found out I got the director's session and just working with you in that little time, and then booking it, and Thomas got on a phone call with me for like an hour just to talk about my character and his vision, and I was just, so excited to work with you.
So, Thomas, the riveting story that we see on screen is one thing, but there's also the incredibly inspiring story behind the scenes in terms of how you managed to fundraise for this film. And I know personally that you've spoken about it extensively in your YouTube videos on the Vandalist. But what I wanted to know is what were the specific touch points or like really key moments where you felt like this was actually going to happen?
Making movies is hard, and I think I'm a little delusional sometimes. Like, I just go in straight ahead. I don't think how hard it is. I'm just gonna go for it and let's see what happens, right? But yeah, it was pretty hard, looking back on it, and especially nowadays with the state of the industry, it's just very difficult for any artist to make something, I think. And I remember at the time, we had the proof of concept. It's not enough. We have the script. No one's gonna read it. I'm a nobody. I'm young. Nobody knows who I am. And so I was, we were taking the script around Hollywood, met with all these production companies, and it was great. Did the water bottle tour. But it's just hard because it's a numbers game. At the end of the day, there are so many talented people out there, and the way to get the money, it's an expensive medium. It's it's a lot of money, and who would bet $1 million+ on some kid who just made short films, right? Like, nobody. I wouldn't do that. If I were me, if I was giving myself money, I wouldn't bet $1 million. You know what I mean? And so my mentor at the time, named Jim Cummings, he's like an independent filmmaker. He was using this strategy called like WeFunder, which is like a crowd equity strategy, basically using crowdfunding and combining that with private equity to raise money for films. And so I was like, shoot, like, I've done Kickstarters before, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? And we launched it a couple years ago, and basically I spent the next 4 or 5 months sending out tens of thousands of emails, LinkedIn's, and just cold outreaches, and like pretty much raised like, the entire budget, almost the entire budget through that. And so I've been telling everybody I know about it. I've been sharing it and educating other filmmakers who are coming up about how to use this strategy to raise money, because my entire mission in life is to help other people, and part of that is like creating my own film academy or my own film school, and I want to do that with the YouTube channel. I want to like educate other filmmakers on how I did it, on how I made work in like a permissionless way, without anyone's permission. And yeah, so as I'm learning about this journey, now we're stepping into distribution and sales and marketing. I'm like, diving headfirst into that and to see like how can I find ways to not self-distribute, but like find permissionless ways to do that and break through the gatekeepers. And so yeah, we raised a lot of money. It was just me on my laptop a couple hours a day, and we did it. And so again, I've just been telling everybody about it, educating people. I think it's going to be the new way that independent films get financed, and so I'm incredibly passionate about it and excited about it, and I want to help other people make cool films like this. So.
One of the key moments in your film is the climactic sequence that takes place in Korea, and you already do have experience shooting there before with your previous short. But not to like this extent and this complexity. So what I was wondering is what were some of the key differences of going to Korea to shoot this time around, and what were some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I made my short film, the short film was made for about like $10,000 all in. So for a short film, that's pretty low. And a funny little story about that short film is that like me and my family, we were taking a vacation to South Korea and for like a month or two to see our grandparents, and I was like, hey, what if we just turn this vacation into a shoot, like a short, or like a shoot, like let's shoot something while we're there. And of course I dragged my parents into that, and like my dad was carrying waters up the hill to like deliver it to the set. I like completely derailed the vacation and made a short film. And so it was incredibly difficult because I was wearing so many hats. I was literally doing everything at once, like the PA, I was a director, I was
Thomas, how old were you?
2021.
When you made the short? I thought you were 21 when we made the movie.
I think I was 22 when I made the movie.
Okay.
I really don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
Very young. Sorry to interrupt.
What was I saying? Yeah, so Korea, the short film was, I think, a lot harder than the feature, actually, because with the feature, we partnered with an incredible company, and one of our Korean producers is here, Q. I don't know where there he is. I love that guy. I love it. He did such a, he and his team did such an incredible job with the South Korean shoot, and just like, we just pulled the most magical things ever with such little money. Like literally no money, and so I'm so proud of everyone that spent the 4.5 days in Korea to shoot Korean scenes, and so it was easier. It was easier, and I had such a blast. I want to go there and make my next feature. Like, it was so fun.
축하합니다.
That means congratulations.
And then Ethan and Samantha, during the shootings of those sequences, what were some of the most memorable moments you experienced in Incheon?
I mean, the place where we shot, the adoption agency, was actually an adoption agency. We were at a real location where children are adopted. The building we were in was decommissioned, so they weren't using it anymore, but we were on a campus of an adoption agency. That was very intense to be there. And there were people there who had never been adopted, who were older teenagers, and to be in that space felt very like hollow ground, you know, and to know the history of the dark side of the history of adoptions of Korean children, and that had happened there. It was very moving.
Just a quick story about that. I think it's really interesting. We were doing location scouts, and we walked into that decommissioned building, and I was like, whoa, like it was completely empty, by the way. That set was completely empty, like hollowed out. They were gonna destroy it. And you know, that was the place, like the biggest, it's called Holtz, like the biggest Korean adoption agency in Korea. And that was literally the place where hundreds of thousands of adoptees were sent out. And that red chair was the exact same chair where all these adoptees took photos. And so they dug it out of their, you know, old warehouse. And yeah, it was crazy. I walked in, I was like, we gotta shoot here. The walls are speaking to me. And my production designer was so mad at me at first, because like, we gotta fill this entire room with all this, with this equipment for like $3,000 USD. I was like, she's like, I can't do it. She had done like a $60 million picture before, and like loved the movie. And she was like, and I like convinced her. I have like this really funny photo where I drew out all the diagrams. I was like, this is gonna go here and here. And she's like, all right, Thomas, we'll make it happen. And then like she pulled off the most amazing thing ever, and she is amazing. Yeah, it was awesome.
And then how about for you, Ethan?
Yeah, that's the same. It was, I walked in, there was like this energy. But other than that, I'd say eating the food was amazing.
Walking in that market was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
And I feel like a lot of that we just kind of did on the fly. And we were dancing, which our cinematographer, our brilliant cinematographer, really fun.
Yeah, we did a lot of things.
And since we're talking about the market, you gotta tell me how you found Hoto, Harmony, and Hanbutsu.
Oh man, yeah. You know the grandpa in the market, he's actually a really famous actor in Korea, and he's also, if you guys have seen the movie Burning or any of that director's films, he was actually the lead producer on all of his early films.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Yeah. He's like the coolest guy. And he's so funny. Yeah, and so I don't remember how we found him actually. Cute with the
I remember
framers.
completely well.
How was it? What happened?
No, we had like a few options, you know, and we all knew that this character is very important because this is like the encounter, right? And I mean, I didn't know him right away, but I went through a couple of people, and you know, I went to see him and try to offer him this role. And at the time, this actor is a very big name, although he's gotten quite old in his career and now he's been working less and less, but he was still working at the time. So I went to his set and then asked him, like, hey, we have this film, it's a very precious story, it's traveling all the way from America, you know, and we're really looking for someone who can be the face of Korea in a way, you know. And he really appreciated that part of it, and he really embraced it. But my favorite part about working with him for that day was that I think he was like 25 minutes late showing up on set, because this man literally travels. He has like no manager. He's like all by himself, and he's very, very old, you know. So he was like 25 minutes late, and Thomas was like, you were very focused on getting your shot, but I had to make sure that this guy comes on time and gets all made up. So I was really worried about everything. But then as soon as he stepped on frame, it was just like everything was flying right away. So
Yeah.
it was a great day. Yep.
That's why I hired him. Yeah.
And since you called out Shane in the audience, both Shane and Cesar helped to create both the visual and the oral language of your film, and wanted to hear you speak more about your collaborations with them.
Yeah, so again, Shane's back there. Say hi on the way out. Get his number because he's gonna do great things. Yeah, with Shane, I mean, so much of the visual language was just like, how do we plant the character in the subjective POV of the main character? That ended up being a lot of shot reverse shots. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of shot reverse shots, but we did a lot of shot reverse shots because that's what we're in the POV of the main character. And so, like, as the movie's going on, like it goes like the lens gets tighter and tighter, and a little shakier and shakier, and the color palette gets more and more muted. These are all little subtle things that we're employing to put you in the perspective of the main character. And in terms of score, Cesar over there, this is actually, you think I'm young? He's younger than me. He's like 21 or something. He is 21, and this is his first film ever. Like, his first time actually scoring but I remember like finding his songs on Spotify, Discover Weekly, and I was like blown away. And so I just started talking to him. And you know when you like find someone who's like a great, like just an A+ person, you know, like they just bring the best work. Like, he was always on it, like sending me stuff, even though we never like officially agreed to anything. He was just like, and he has such a deep film knowledge. And again, it was just really great working with him. And the score, you know, we literally experimented for a whole year, and it evolved through so many stages. The earliest scores were very melodic, and it was like, you know, like Ghibli films, like very Miyazaki, and then we realized like, oh, this feels like it's saying too much, you know, like so much of the film is about what C is feeling inside. And so I originally thought that the music should be like dialogue, like the music should be saying a lot because we're not seeing him say a lot, but it just felt like too much. And so the version of the score that's in the film is very muted. It almost feels like you're underwater in some places. Like there's a bit of like an ethereal feeling to it. And we even played with like using like a toy piano, you know, it's not a toy piano, but it's like a piano that has like a toy piano quality, like very muted. And like that's what's in the film. And so it's like all these elements, yeah, just a lot of experimenting, to be honest, to make what we made.
So 3 years ago, I was remiss to sort of like cut off your Q&A without asking this question. And that's sort of what you took it upon your own volition to express about the crowdfunding campaign, basically, for this film. And I'm not going to make that mistake again. So what I wanted to know was, what are your future plans for Isle Child? How could the audience share this film with others? And then what creative plans do you have beyond that?
This is a small movie. I mean, the credits were very long, like I said. It's a small movie, big family. Unless we get bought out, unless someone from like Lionsgate is sitting in the room and gonna buy the film, it's hard to market something these days. You know, there's just a lot of content out there, and really, like, the biggest thing you guys can do is like write a review on Letterboxd. You know, write a review somewhere, and you know, if you want, share with your friends and tell people about it. It might be difficult for us to like it might take a while for it to like hit streaming or theaters or something because we're so small, but hopefully I think the Letterboxd reviews, they go a long way now, and so sign up for Letterboxd if you don't have it, and like just give it a rating. You know, I don't really care what the rating is, just give it something, and it'll help so much. I think getting the word out there and building momentum for the film. So yeah, thank you guys for that. And what I'm working on next is just continuing to build out the YouTube channel. You know, that's kind of like a monthly thing that I've been doing. And it takes up a lot of time and energy, but really, like, no one my age, I think, has like really, or I guess like most people who are making features, they don't have time or energy to like synthesize all this information that you learn from making features and then share it with the world in like a very digestible format, you know, which is a YouTube video. But I think there's a huge gap in the market for that, and I think that everyone benefits from it. You know, if I can invest my time and energy into, again, synthesizing all this data and making it digestible, then you know, I could use that to market this film and like my friends' films and the community's films, like bring up the next community of independent filmmakers. Like, there's so many of me out there, you know, who just don't have the resources to make what they want to make, and so I want to give them all the power to do that. And work on the YouTube channel, and then writing my next project, which is set in the countryside of Korea. Yeah, I want to shoot that, but I got to deal with this. After tonight, I'll go back to the final draft and I'll work on that. So if you hear my name again in 2 years, 3 years maybe, then, you know, I'll have succeeded there.
I'm absolutely sure we will. Ethan, Samantha, and Ava, real quick, what can we look forward to from the three of you?
The business has been really slow since the strike. But I did do a movie last summer called By Design by a filmmaker called Amanda Kramer. If you don't know her, check her out. She's amazing. And we went to Sundance and did well there. And, you know, it's going on to hopefully other festivals and looking for a buyer. Like Thomas said, it's a challenging time in the marketplace, but it's a really interesting movie with Juliette Lewis and Mamadou Ate, and Robin Tunney, Udo Kier, a really fun cast. So hopefully that'll come out in the next year or so.
I just had a movie come out on Thanksgiving called Sweethearts on Max. Check that out. And the crazy girlfriend that I mentioned. And then I did this movie called Summer of '69. It's Jillian Bell's directorial debut. And that's coming out, I think, on May 9th on Hulu. So, yeah.
Well, in the foreseeable future for me is just school. So. However, I'll have fun with that. But before Isle Child came out recently, I did there's a YouTube channel called Every Frame of Painting, and I just did a short film with them with Paul Lee, Shane Grappa, King's Convenience. He did a short with him and Tony and Taylor, which was amazing and really fun. And then you can see me on the finale for Umbrella Academy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thomas, any closing remarks you'd like? The floor is yours.
Anything. I just want to. I'm gonna reiterate this. I I am just a facilitator. I just bring the best people together and hopefully inspire them in some capacity to do their best work, and they make the movie. So, yeah, my name is first in the credits, in the end credits, but really it's the people that I brought together that made the movie. And so I am sitting here on behalf of them, and really you guys should be thanking them. All your claps are directed directly at these front rows because they made the movie, and I am just a facilitator. So I just want to thank them again. There was so much blood, sweat, tears, love that went into this film. It's actually unbelievable. And I'm just so thankful. Yeah, just very, very thankful.
Please give it up for our film team.